Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. My name is Cindy D. Whitmer, and I am the Midlife Makeover Coach, helping you turn your midlife into your best life, one step at a time. Through powerful conversations, my own midlife roller coaster story, and over 3 decades of helping people transform their lives through counseling and coaching, I am on a mission to help you create your own definition of success and happiness. Thank you for being here. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. I appreciate that you're here with me today. And today I want to talk to you about hope, because sometimes I hear, well, actually, quite often, I hear women, in midlife feeling very hopeless, very powerless, you often say things to me like, it's too late for me. I'm too old for this, and it's hard for you to have a vision of anything being different in your life or getting better. And so I wanted to explore hope, which to me is the feeling of expectation or desire for a certain thing to happen, or for something to be the case, for something to be true. And it's a wonderful feeling to feel hope. It's a really positive feeling. And I recently watched a Netflix documentary about Sylvester Stallone, who created among other things, created the Rocky movie series. And I just loved those movies. I just loved them. And every time I watched them, I just was moved emotionally so much. And I know that's what I loved about it, because I'm not a boxing fan. Like, I've never been a boxing fan, never watched boxing. I don't like anything aggressive or violent or bloody, or, I'm just not into any of that kind of thing. But for some reason, these movies really always really spoke to me. And I think it's that because they always had that feeling of hope, that anything is possible, and so on. And so when I heard there was a documentary about Sylvester Stallone's life, I definitely wanted to check it out. And if you are a fan of him at all, you might want to watch that too. It's on Netflix. But anyway, I learned that, Sly, which he's called, had a very, very difficult childhood. He was raised by parents who worked all the time and kind of neglected he and his brother Frank. But his father's way of teaching them a lesson or disciplining them when there was trouble was to beat them physically. And so they grew up in this very violent situation. And he was their dad was very, very hard on them, according to him. And so he ended up in a lot of different schools growing up. He was in trouble a lot of the time, was not a good student, just really struggled in lots of ways. And, craved the love of his parents and attention of his parents, but instead got a lot of neglect and then abuse. And so eventually he went on to college, and that's when he got the acting bug. He got involved in theater in college. And so he decided he'd be an actor. But then when he got out in the real world and was trying to make it as an actor, it was a total struggle. It was just a huge, huge struggle. And then he started writing, and he had this vision of this boxer, this thug, who became a boxer that he named Rocky, and named him Balboa, his last name Balboa, because of a street he was living on in a city at the time. But anyway, he had this vision of this boxer, and he wrote about this boxer being able to go the distance in a boxing match with a champion. But he didn't know if there would be an audience for it. And then in 1975, kind of a nobody boxer named Chuck Wepner went 15 rounds with Muhammad Ali, who of course was, the greatest of all time or whatever. And so it was such a story of hope. I mean, Chuck did not win the match. Ali ended up knocking him out in the 15th round, but he made it through the 15, went all 15 rounds with Ali, which people were not doing. And so Sylvester Stallone saw how the world reacted to this and then knew, ooh, there is an audience for this character I wrote. And so he started pursuing filmmakers and producers and things like that to make this movie. And there was all kinds of interest around it. I mean, people wanted to make this movie, but they wanted some big time male actor to play the role of Rocky, like James Caan, Ryan O'Neal, Burt Reynolds, and so forth. But Sylvester Stallone was like, no, I wrote this part for me. I am Rocky Balboa. I am Rocky Balboa. And they fought him on it. And he insisted on it. Like they had made him great offers. And he just kept saying, I've got to be in this role. Like he just knew. He had this vision. He just knew. So finally someone agreed to make the film with him playing Rocky Balboa, gave him $1 million. He had $1 million budget and 28 days to do it. And of course, you probably know this movie went off the charts. This little nothing movie with this not unknown actor writer, and it went off the charts, successful. And I believe it's because it gave people hope. Like it really gave people hope. And so, of course, it won all kinds of Oscar nominations and some actual Oscars in 1976, and then became a whole franchise with 6 movies. And now there's the Creed movies that are a spin-off of those. And anyway, the franchise is supposedly worth at this time $2 billion. Okay, so here we have this kid who grew up with no advantages whatsoever, no money, no emotional support, and actually abuse, who struggled, and then kept being persistent, kept believing, hung on to hope for this life he wanted as an actor and a writer and so forth. And look what this turned into. I mean, he went on to do a whole series of the Rambo movies, which, by the way, the filmmakers of that first movie and that series wanted to kill off Rambo, his main character, at the end of the first movie. And he's like, absolutely not. No, he said, I am in the business of hope. And Rambo was this guy who was this Vietnam vet who was mute and very violent. And like I said, the filmmakers wanted to kill him off at the end of the first movie. And Sylvester Stallone was like, we cannot do that right now. Literally right now, 20,000 vets a month are killing themselves, from surviving the Vietnam War. And I am in the business of hope. I give people hope through my movies. And so they agreed to change the end of the movie. And then of course it became another wildly successful franchise, which I don't know how many movies are in that one. So anyway, he calls himself someone who's in the business of hope. And I love that. And that's what I am in the business of as well. I'm in the business of hope. I want to give you hope and help you realize that midlife is not the end. It doesn't have to be the end of your life at all, or the end of your personal growth, or the end of change in a positive way. Like midlife can be a new beginning. It can be, some call it our second act, some call it our second chapter, call it whatever you want. But trust me, you are not too old. You are not too anything to create a better life for yourself if you are seriously struggling to be happy right now, or healthy, or whatever it is. It's just really important that you find your hope. So a little personal story, when I was feeling most hopeless in my life was when I was 14 years old, and my parents announced they were going to get a divorce. I was in the middle of 8th grade. I had lived in the same town my whole life, in this little town where we rode our bikes all over the town. We went to the swimming pool in the summer and swam for hours. We went down to the little variety store downtown and spent our dimes and quarters on bubble gum or lollipops or whatever we wanted to do. I mean, it's just a very carefree time in the 1970s in a little town in Iowa. And I loved it there and was surrounded by friends and family. My grandparents lived around the corner. I had cousins out on the farm close by that I spent lots of time with, and just everything. My whole life was there. And then one night, our mother announced that she was divorcing our father and we were moving in a week. And we did. And we moved to this town that was 3 times the size of our little town, left everybody behind, our father, our friends, the rest of our family, went to this town, knew no one. I started a school that was huge to me. And I felt really hopeless. I felt like, oh, my life is just everything I've known is gone. And what am I going to do? And how am I going to go on living, with this whole situation? And my parents were in such distraught states themselves that they couldn't be very helpful. They were going through so much themselves. And I just felt like I didn't have any choices. I had begged to stay in the town I grew up in. I begged to stay with my dad, but I didn't have anything to say about that. I was a child at the time. So what I did was I decided, and this is what I want to talk to you about if you're going through and you're feeling stuck or you're feeling overwhelmed or hopeless, is I made a decision at 14 that I could either embrace these unwanted circumstances I found myself in, or I could fight them. I could fight against them, resist them, and, the whole thing. And I knew that the healthier choice, somehow I knew, I don't know how I knew at age 14, but somehow I knew the best way for me to create a life for myself was to embrace these unwanted circumstances and make the best of them. And so I did. Like I went to my new school and I thought, okay, even though I'm desperately unhappy in my life right now, I'm in total despair and I'm pretty scared and I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen. I have got to smile and be friendly and kind because I need to make friends. Like I need to make a life for myself. And somehow I found the strength to do that, even as a young teen. And people were kind, and helpful, and I made friends instantly, and the teachers were so good to me, and everybody really was helpful, and I was open to that, receiving that help. I was open to really diving in and becoming a part of things. But the other thing that happened was I realized at that time how lonely I was because I didn't feel like I had anyone I could talk to, about my problems. Like I couldn't go home and talk about my problems. I didn't know anybody enough to talk to them in the new space. I did talk to God because I was raised to believe in God, and I would go home at night and in bed I would talk to God before I went to sleep, and that of course helped because I believe in God and I believed in God's loving care over all of us and so forth. So that helped. But there was a loneliness about my life, even though I was starting to make friends and so forth. And the loneliness was I felt alone in my circumstances, and I didn't know what to do with all those feelings. And so what I did with that was I became a listener. I realized, okay, I don't know who to talk to. I want to be a person who, is a good listener and can support people through their problems. And so that's kind of one of the new roles I had in my school was I kind of became this nice gal that, people started to understand, oh, she'll listen to our problems. We can talk to her. She's trustworthy. She listens, and she's kind and compassionate and so forth. And I found such joy in that. And I found hope, in that. And so that completely changed the trajectory of my life. That's why I became a counselor, and that's why I am a coach. Like that is why. It's because, the hardest, scariest thing I've ever been through in my life, my parents' divorce and that move when I was in 8th grade, actually out of it blossomed this whole career I've had. Like it literally that directed my life. And I knew by about the time I was 15, about a year year and a half after this started with my parents and the whole thing, I knew, oh, I'm going to be somebody who listens to people and helps them through their problems for the rest of my life. That's what I want to do. And so isn't that interesting that one of the just darkest hours of my life, one of the deepest, darkest, hardest, challenging, most challenging chapters in my life where I felt the most hopeless, the most powerless, actually turned into my entire professional life that has been pure joy for me, has been so satisfying, has been so meaningful, and continues to be so, and has been my whole life. It's over 35 years now that I've been doing this kind of work. And I can't imagine a way to create my own livelihood that I would love more than I have loved this. And I don't know if my life had been different, if my parents had stayed together, if we hadn't had to move. I don't know if I would have discovered that love or not in under any other circumstances. And so I want that to give you hope, because if you're going through, a really dark season in your life, anything super challenging that you feel like, gosh, what's gonna excuse me, come of me from this? What is anything, how am I going to get through this, or is anything good going to come of that? I'm here to tell you that I'm a living example that it can, and it will, and it does. And we simply need to take those, really those circumstances we do not want, that we feel like fighting, and somehow find a way to embrace them and go, okay, here's where I am in my life now. I don't like this. I didn't want this, but here I am. Here I am. And I'm gonna flow with it. I'm gonna get into the flow of it. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm gonna make the best of it. And I'm gonna insist that I turn this darkness into a great light in my life. I'm going to find blessings, treasures, gifts, whatever we want to say, out of this circumstance. So look for what you can be grateful for in the midst of it all. Look for what's fueling you, what feels good in the midst of it all, and always move toward that, what you actually want, not the sea of darkness that you're in that you don't want, but look for, what do I want out of this? What do I believe is on the other side of this for me? Or what can I create? Or what can I move toward? And always focus on that. Hang on to the hope of that and move toward it all the time. So in the meantime, when your life is challenging you and you feel like just putting on your boxing gloves and start swinging and hitting and fighting against something, really resist that temptation as much as you can. Don't fight against your circumstances. Don't fight anyone, and don't fight yourself. Instead, just shift your focus and your energy on the hope of it, on what you hope for on the other side of the circumstances or situation, and then take action that aligns with that desire, that moves you in that direction. Sylvester Stallone said in this documentary, no one punches harder than life. No one. He said, what matters is how much you can get hit and keep moving forward. So I love that. I love it. And I'm telling you that when you can find hope in any situation at all that feels dire, that feels dark, that feels hopeless, where you feel powerless, when you can find hope in that situation and move forward toward that, then you will feel like a champion, because you will have mastered this life. And that's what I want to leave you with today. I wish you hope. I wish you joy. And I'm with you all the way. If I can do anything to serve you in that journey, please let me know. Go to timeofcindy.com or cindydwhitmer.com and reach out to me, and I will be your partner as you move towards your hope. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to the Life Makeovers podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those that you think would also benefit from what we're doing here. And I will talk to you again soon.